Now the handlebars are on. Can't sit on it yet. Welcome to the next episode of Monkeywrench Builds. And in this episode, we are going to get the used-to-be parts bike put back together. I bought this thing thinking that I would make it into a parts bike and use a lot of its pieces on the previous build, the 1982. But I actually ended up not using anything from it. I switched the axle back out, so the original axle is on the 82. The 1983 axle sitting here. So everything here is from that bike. First step is I need to get the engine rebuilt. I got brand new tires and wheels for it, mainly because when this thing came in, it had a 4x130 hub up front with an 8-inch rim, and then it had one 4x130 8-inch rim on one side and a 9-inch rim on the other side. So it was running all kinds of not level. So I've got the original tire for up front. That's on a 8-inch rim, and then the rears I've got some really nice, really clean 9-inch rims that actually have the bolt pattern for both a 4x150 bolt pattern and a 4x130 bolt pattern, which means I can use the original hubs and have one on one set on the left side and then one on one set on the right side, and it won't be a problem. And also, what's nice about this is I can also take these rims off and put them on whatever other bike I want to. Another advantage that I've got on these guys is they're going to stance the bike out, because original rims are mounted centered, and these guys are shifted 3 inches on one and 6 inches on the other. So it's going to make the bike sit a little bit wider, which will make it more stable, which is good because these bikes have a very bad habit of tipping over. I'm still waiting on the other wheel. I don't know why it didn't show up yet. The shipper sent me one and then didn't send me the other. So I got to figure that out. And yes, they are small. I'm running on 22-inch tires when the originals I think were 24, 26. I forget which ones they were. I'm running 22s because, well, honestly, just because I felt like it. It'll give it a little bit more power because it's because of the gear ratios, and also I honestly think it'll look really nice being on a little bit smaller. It'll sit a little bit lower to the ground, be a little more stable. But I'm excited to get this thing tearing on the trails again. Working on this engine. I'm gonna go ahead, do a lot of this quickly. I'm not really gonna be showing or explaining a whole lot. This is the exact same type of engine as what I tore down on the 82. So if you want to see more detail on that, go ahead and watch those videos. I will post a link in the video description, or there'll be a tag up here. Or that side. I forget which side. Go ahead and give that a look. So we're gonna go ahead and just get the top end torn down, cleaned up, and get this thing put back together as quickly as possible. Yesterday, I started tearing apart the engine, and I got the top end out, and as it turns out, the cylinder has some overheating damage on the cylinder itself and on the piston. You can see it's all scorched on the side here. So the engine teardown is going to be at a bit of a standstill right now. My decision is I'm going to end up getting the cylinder oversized to either 60.25 or to 65.25 or 65.50 and putting a new shindy piston in, which will hopefully fix all of these problems. But I need to order that because I wasn't expecting to have to put a new piston in, so I had ordered just rings and nothing else. So with that in mind, engine rebuild is at a halt right now. I'll be doing some cleaning up behind the scenes and trying to get everything ready, but I won't be able to assemble anything until that comes in sometime next week. Which means instead of working on the engine, I'm gonna work on getting some assembly done I'm still waiting on that second tire. I guess there was a snowstorm out in Montana, so it's been delayed. But I can still get everything else put back together. So front end's all here, it's all cleaned up, ready to go. I've got to get the rear axle, the carrier on and the axle itself installed, and I can probably start throwing the wiring harness and the handlebars and everything else back on. So that's the plan. And then once I'm done with that, I'll move on to some cleaning, and hopefully I can keep myself busy until the piston shows up. Front axle is complete and installed, and now it's time to move on to the next thing. So here's where we're at. All I've got to do next is get the handlebar top installed and the handlebars on. Getting the rear hubs installed. Unfortunately, I don't have wheels for them yet because I'm waiting for that other tire. And then I've got to do the wiring harness and the air box and a couple of other things to button this up. Then we're pretty much done, and it'll just be waiting on the engine to get completed, and then I can throw the engine in, and hopefully this thing will be ready to roll. First things first, I gotta get the handlebars reassembled. That's as far as I'm gonna get with the handlebar mounts, because the mount that goes on here, which is sitting over here, these guys, this one has the right nut on it, and this one didn't even have the right thread or nut on it, so it's completely wrong, and it wasn't going on correctly, and these threads are already kind of chewed up, but thankfully this guy still goes on it smooth. But I checked and I don't have any hardware that'll fit this, so I'll have to run to the hardware store and grab these. So that's it for the handlebars, and then here's the other piece as well. Yeah, that's it for handlebars right now. I think my next thing is going to be getting the airbox installed again, and then I'll possibly try to run a little bit of wiring. I'm just kind of piecing pieces together as I find them in the boxes. I am just about done for today, so let's take a look at what I've gotten done today. This bike is as assembled as I can get it right now. I've got some of the wiring done. I held off on doing the rest of the wiring because I want to get the engine in before I start tying everything down. I've got a new ignition coil in because the original one was broken, and it looks really good, a lot more clean, a lot less well, a lot more flexible compared to the original for sure. So that'll be a nice upgrade. Foot brakes in, I had to make a new spring for right here. So I'm pretty sure the piece of spring that I took this off of was from a trampoline of some sort. Not entirely sure, but that worked out pretty good. Foot brakes in, rear axles assembled. I've got some of the electrical components reinstalled, so the starter solenoid and the regulator, and then I've got the CDI sitting up here as well, and the air box, and then of course we're waiting on getting some new bolts or new nuts so that I can put the handlebars back on, and then connect up some of that wiring. Hopefully tomorrow I can get that hardware done, get everything else installed, and then all that's left is to wait on the piston, get the engine reassembled, cleaned up and reassembled, and throw it in the bike, and hopefully everything is working how I want it to. I'm sure there'll be a lot of tweaking I gotta do, but that's with any of these old projects. So, later. I ran to the hardware store this morning and I got everything I need to get the handlebars mounted. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these on and check that off the list. Now the handlebars are on. Can't sit on it yet, but making progress, starting to look like a bike again. All right, what's next? Handlebars are on, everything else is good. I think all I'm waiting on now is the tires and rebuilding the engine. Everything else has been buttoned up. Old and crusty. New and shiny. Let's get some new wheels put on this thing. Here it is. I've got about, I think, 4 inches wider in the back with these new wheels. So that looks really good. And it sits a little bit lower to the ground with 22-inch tires. But I think this thing is going to turn out fantastic. I'm really excited to go run it. After what seems like forever, it's finally time to get this engine back installed into the bike. So I've gone through this thing. It's got a top end rebuild. I had to get the cylinder bored because there was overheating damage. So now it's got a new first oversized shindy piston in it. I've rebuilt the entire bottom end. Had to put a new crankshaft in because the original crankshaft was damaged. What else did I do? Touched up a couple of things. It's got all new gaskets. I'm hoping I did everything right and that I don't have any leaks, but I guess, well, that remains to be seen. But I'm pretty sure I did everything good. The damaged parts on the casing that were cracked, those have been all replaced. So this thing should be ready to go. So I'm going to work on getting it installed and get the carburetor hooked up and then move on to wiring and catch up with you then. 200. It's been a couple days since that last clip where I got it to start, and a couple of developments have happened. First off, this lovely box, which I will be showing you guys in a couple minutes. Also, I spent the last couple days, I did a bunch of little odds and ends that I didn't really think were worth filming. I got a connector kit so I could redo some of these connectors and put some new insulators on the ends, that way they, don't contact. So that's been cleaned up a lot. I've got a choke cable installed. I've got a front brake lever and front brake lever installed. Our starter switch is on. I cleaned up the push button starter the push button starter switch here because it was all rusted out and wasn't actually doing what it was supposed to do. Found a pull starter. Got a pull starter installed. So that's all good. I've also got, move this out of the way. I've also got a rear rack installed. Of course, it needs some more hardware because right now it's only mounted by 2 bolts and that don't work. So I ran to the hardware store, got some stuff to fix that up. And I don't know if you can see it in the shot right now, but I have mud flaps, OEM Honda line mud flaps. That I got with a parts bike, and I have them on here right now, and they look kind of neat, but they also look kind of odd with the smaller tires. But I don't know, maybe it'll look a little bit nicer once I have the actual fenders on, then it'll look a little bit more complete. But I don't know if we'll keep those on or not yet, but I have them, so that's kind of neat. So for today, we're gonna unpack this box, and I've got a couple other little odds and ends to do, and then maybe I'll take it for a test ride. I have a seat pan, and I have a seat cover, but they're all in pieces right now, so I need to assemble them and put them on the bike. And of course, the elephant in the room is the fact that this whole wiring harness is just kind of hanging out here like a bunch of spaghetti. I have a couple of ideas for a front end of putting a headlight on here. Not the OEM headlight. I have a headlight from the 1982 model, so it's got like the headlight cage and the insert and everything. The same models that had the front rack here. But I need to figure out how to adapt, basically make some adapters to mount that headlight onto this. So I'll play with a couple of things, and once I have a plan, you guys will know. Time to open my goodie box, and as you've probably already figured out, judging by the size of the box, this is some new fenders. These are replacement fenders made by Meyer. I don't know how to pronounce it. Really popular aftermarket brand, and they make really high quality stuff. If you're watching this video and you're familiar with the Big Red community, there's a lot of people that swear by them, and a lot of them love them because they're really close to OEM. But I bought them because trying to buy original ones off of eBay is, it's same price, if not more expensive, and they're in worse condition. So these are brand new, and they look gorgeous. Okay. See what this looks like. And of course I will eventually be buying a front fender as well, but I figured I would start with the rears since I wasn't quite sure how I'm going to put the front together yet with the headlight. But see, there's more tape on here then. I'll start with the rears because it makes the biggest difference. Now, in all honesty, I have never seen one of these bikes in person with the full plastic on. It's going to be fun. Here. Meyer USA. That's upside down for you guys, but you get the point. How is that? Alrighty. This looks like a a left-hand fender. That looks gorgeous. Oh, this is gonna look so good. So good. I'm just gonna rest you right there. Alright. Next guy unbox. Aha! It does come with hardware. Sweet! I wasn't sure if these guys came with hardware, but they do, which is good, because all the original hardware that I had from this thing is completely rotted away. Oh, this is better than Christmas. And here's your left fender. Little badges here. That looks fantastic. Well, this is as far as I've gotten so far, and it looks pretty darn good. Had to make a couple of adjustments to make things fit. This fender went on pretty smooth. All the bolt holes lined it up, so that wasn't an issue. And I had guessed over on this side, there's a little flange right here on the frame, and so I made these holes that you can see back there. I made this hole big enough that it could pop on to the frame, and it would get sandwiched in between this mount and the grab bar. And I did the same thing over here. This one's lining up, and this one is not. So I'll have to do some finagling there. This one's been a little bit more of a pain. I had to do a little bit of stretching the holes for these two bolts to get them to fit. And I don't know if you can see back there, but this hole doesn't quite line up. So I'll have to do some playing around there. And the last problem is my rack doesn't fit. Now, I'm not entirely sure why my rack doesn't fit, but right now, if I hold it there, it's too wide and it won't fit in between the fenders. So I'll have to try something to fix that. I think my first step is I'm gonna pull these bolts out and just have them loose and see if I can slide the rack in with those bolts out, and maybe I'll put a spacer in between the mount and the bolt, and that'll help. But I'm not quite sure what's causing that yet. Well, here it is. Got the plastics all done. Everything's mounted down. I had to do a little bit of editing. I had to do a little bit of modifying here. So I don't know how this was originally designed to fit, but this is the best way I can get it to work. All the bolts are on. I've got my seat cover laid out just to kind of see what this thing looks like. Here's my seat, which is currently in the process of being repaired. I had to repair this whole crack. I was going to use plastic welding, but I was having trouble getting it to stick, so I figured I'd just use JB Weld and hope for the best. So I got to do the underside too. I got to fix this crack still, and I got to fix this crack still. And then I have this piece that I'm going to try to meld back in here. So the seat still got a little bit of ways to go, but for a look of what this thing's going to look like, or a hint of what this thing's going to look like, there you go. And I gotta say, it looks really nice. I'm super happy with this. Brand new plastics. Man, this bike is very old and very scratched and dented and needs a paint job, but the new plastics just makes it look so nice. Well, I started working on the seat cover and I've got nothing but problems. I got the seat cover off of a donor bike that I picked up recently. And I was all excited because, hey, it comes with a seat pan. All I gotta do is find some foam and a seat cover and I'm good to go. But this thing is so brittle, I'm putting staples in it and it's just disintegrating all along the edge. I already had to do a repair here. This is all my JB Weld work that I did over the past week trying to make this thing workable again. And I knew that it was brittle. I wasn't sure how much force that these staples would put in, but it's just disintegrating. It's kind of held up here and it's kind of held up here, but you can see this one's come out. I had one over here that came out. So this seat cover's junk. So I believe what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to take the seat cover off and set it aside for now and hold on to it, and hopefully I can find a seat pan on eBay that's in better condition than this one. But for the time being, taking the seat cover off, and I'm just going to take this foam and I'm going to duct tape it onto this, and at least it'll be rideable. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be pretty ugly, but it'll be rideable. So it'll be a old looking bike with brand new plastics and a questionable looking seat. But hopefully I'll be able to remedy that at some point in the future, but at least it'll be rideable. It's not going to win any beauty pageants, but it's sealed off from the weather and it holds the foam in place. And it's actually not that bad. It's pretty comfy. So that's done. On to the next thing. This thing runs great. I've taken it for a couple of test rides and I'm loving it so far. There's a couple of things that I gotta do before I can consider this rideable, or everyday rideable at least. One of the main things is I want to get the front shock covers installed. I've had a set, I've had them for a while now, and I just haven't had a chance to install them. The last time I tried to take the front fork apart, I did not figure out a way to get the shocks off of the fork. So I got a couple of different ideas. I'm going to try to do that, and hopefully I can get something to work, and then I can get those installed, and then this thing will be pretty much good to go for now. Eventually I'll get a front fender and probably clean it up and paint it and do all that, but that's further down the line. So for now, this is pretty much the last step. With the front tire off, I'm now going to try to get these shocks off. So I'm going to pull these two bolts out, and hopefully I can use, I'm going to try to use some channel locks and wrap this in a towel, and hopefully I can kind of twist it and wiggle it and it'll loosen up and come out. The other thing that I'm going to try is wedging some screwdrivers into these two clamps on either side, and hopefully that'll be enough to break whatever's holding this together and they'll come off easily. So, see what happens. Well, I paused the camera a minute to try something out before I rolled it again, and it worked. So what I ended up doing is I took my 3/8 ratchet, I ran it through this hole for the axle, and I just started hitting the dumb thing. And it slowly worked its way out until it eventually gave out. So, ta-da! There's our shock. And thankfully, yeah, it doesn't look like it's too damaged. I don't think my my tape job did much, but thankfully nothing's damaged, so should be good to go once I put the new shock boot on. On to the next one. both shocks. Alright, I got the shocks, got the boots put back on, and everything cleaned up really nicely, so I don't see a whole lot of damage on these shafts. I didn't rebuild these at this point. I might be doing that at some point in the future, but right now they work just fine, and I'm just gonna keep using them, and if and when at some point I decide to tear this thing down and paint it, then I will probably go through and rebuild the shocks at that point. But they're good to go for now, so hopefully this is an easy enough reinstall. There you have it. The front fork boots are on, finally. That took me way too long to do because I've been procrastinating doing it and did a whole bunch of other stuff instead, but it's finally finished and I'm really happy with the result. So that's pretty much it for this bike for now. It's rideable, it's drivable, it runs great. I think the only things that I have to do long term is I do want to get a front fender for it at some point. And I need to clean up the wiring, and I need to get a headline assembly at some point. I've got a couple of ideas on that. That might be sometime in the future video or whatever. But for now, this thing's pretty much done. So I'm gonna take it out riding and enjoy it, and move on to the next project, which I'm excited to start. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's something a little bit different than this build from the last one, so. Should be entertaining for you guys to watch and for me to build. So thanks for watching, stay tuned for more videos, and we'll see you in the next one.